Welcome to our Go Moment today. I have a very, very dear friend actually sitting across from me. Welcome to Al Mawhinney. And Al is one of these guys, we were just talking before we filmed, and I said, you know, Al, you really are one of those guys that flies under the radar. If you met Al and his wife Margie in the hallway, you just, think, oh, they're such nice, friendly people. They are involved in our life group ministry, have a great group of friends here. They're part of our family here, but this man has a long history in ministry. So Al, thanks for joining us today for a Go Moment.
Great to be here, Polly.
Yeah. And Al also oversees our missions board right now, our missions team, working with Pastor Mark and getting our missions growing and developing again. So I've heard. You're going to clue us in on missions a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay. What I want you to know about Al, though, today, and we want to spend a little time talking about it, is Al is a Greek scholar, a Greek theologian. He spent most of his life working at 2 theological seminaries as the academic dean. He has seen, I don't know how many men, I don't know if any women, but
oh, yes.
Were there women too?
Oh, yes.
How many men and women do you think that you actually ministered to over the years that went into ministry? Would there be a number for that for you, Al?
I have never tried to calculate it, but if you figure 25, 30 years, graduating, 60, 70 a year,
that's a lot.
Somebody with better math skills than I can crank it out.
That's a lot of students.
Yes. It's fun these days to be looking at different publications and seeing a new book published by one of my former students, and just to have a chance to read these books that former students are writing, and hearing reports back from the mission field of where some other former students are serving, whether it be in Japan or Costa Rica or wherever they happen to be.
Yeah, and your son, you have a son in ministry. You have 3 children.
Three children. One oldest son has worked at Ligonier Ministries for over 25 years now.
Yeah.
And a second son who is on the pastoral staff at a church in Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah. All that legacy. It's good stuff, Al.
Good kids. Praise the Lord.
Also, he's my partner in crime, actually. You might not know this about this guy. He and I discovered we had a same item on our bucket list. Al, why don't you tell him what we did? Go ahead, tell him what we did.
We went skydiving.
Yes, we went skydiving, and his lovely wife, Margie, she was the pilot that day, because thank God she was
Not the
driving.
pilot of the airplane.
Not the airplane, the car. Thank you for clarifying that. But she drove the car for us because it would have been so hard to drive.
The adrenaline pump afterwards.
Rush, man. We were just like 2 chatty Cathys after that. It was such a great experience. But this is a dear friend. Al, tell folks how you got actually involved, though, in the missions of our church. What moved you to go into missions?
Margie and I have been at CLC since, that would have been the spring of '07.
Okay.
And a couple of years later, back when John Rotz was still here, John was on our pastoral staff, and one year John decided instead of having a missions banquet on a missions weekend, we'd have a missions week. And during that missions week on Monday night, we had a missionary here at CLC, and all the small groups that met on Monday nights were encouraged to come and attend. Mm-hmm. And Tuesday night, same thing, different set of groups. Well, Margie was in a small group, the Blessed Women group, and she. Is
that what it was called?
The Blessed Women is what the name of their group was. At least back in those days.
Yeah.
And so on Tuesday night, Margie and I showed up, and on Wednesday night, everybody was going to be here, and so Margie and I showed up. Thursday night. Well, on Thursday nights, usually Margie and I are in a small group of, let's just say, senior citizens. We meet with Sam and Tina Lepore and some others our age. And on Thursday night, so we showed up here again on Thursday night. About that time, John Rotz tapped me on the shoulder afterwards and said, you're here just about every night. What's with you and missions?
Yeah.
And that was sort of my entree into missions at CLC. There came an opening on the missions committee a few months later, and John recommended me and asked me to join it. So
that's where it all started.
But the seed for missions was sown long ago.
Yeah.
The seed for missions was sown in the church Margie and I grew up in. We were teenagers in a church where every Sunday the pastor prayed for missionaries by name from the pulpit.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. The pastor had been raised as a missionary child in Chile. And missions was just right there in front of you every Sunday. I can remember a decade later when I was away at college and later on in life, running into churches where missions was not the heartbeat of the congregation, and it seemed so strange to me. It wasn't every church like the one I grew up in.
Yeah.
And so it was just embedded in me from the earliest days of my walk with Christ, and then later I had opportunity over the years, both in Ukraine and in Austria, to teach missionaries and national pastors.
Okay.
And so those experiences just enriched my love for missions and made it a very easy thing for me to say yes to John when John asked if I'd be interested in helping out with missions here at CLC.
I just didn't realize how far back that actually went for you.
Yeah. It's been a heartbeat, deep thing.
Your whole
Margie still
ministry
still has a Bible from our teenage years,
Wow.
where she wrote the names of all these missionaries in the back of the Bible, so she could be praying for them during the week. And she still has that Bible.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it really is.
So, Al, you've had a long history in ministry. You've trained and equipped ministers. Actually, another cool thing about Al and his service over the years for theological seminaries was actually setting up the satellite schools, which at that time was kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
There really wasn't. And so he would travel and search out areas, whether that would be a good place to launch a ministry or a school for ministry.
Yeah.
Well, here we are, all these years later. Al, as someone who has really spent most of a good portion of their life investing in ministry, investing in ministers, studying God's Word, what do you see as something that's really changed over this period of time in church world and in ministry? What is something that's kind of notable to you that's really a positive?
I think one of the things that is a great positive, there was a temptation back in the 1960s, 1950s, early 1970s. There was a temptation for churches to define their mission very narrowly, almost like we're interested in seeing God save souls and get a free ticket to heaven.
Yeah.
But not interested in becoming involved in our communities.
Yeah.
One of the great strengths of Christian Life Center is the kind of thing that Pastor Mark has been leading us into more and more. I think it's always been here at Christian Life Center, but I think it's receiving greater emphasis these days. The foster children care, the food drive, these kind of things where we are touching our community and showing the community, not just preaching the word of the gospel to them, but showing them by our lives
those good works,
what the gospel is all about. We're not driving a wedge between our words and our actions. We're seeing the two of them wed together in a way that I think is really tremendous. And I don't think it's just Christian Life Center. I think
it's the big.
I think the Christian community larger than Christian Life Center is doing a lot of the same thing at that point. Yeah.
That's good. When you first felt like God, one of the purposes of Go Moments, every Go Moment we do, I always like to ask the question: when did you know what your purpose, what your destiny was? I know that when I think through my life. You know, we have these identifiers of where we began to see our life take a different turn. Al, you grew up, you know,
Yep.
Catholic, right?
No.
No?
Presbyterian. Church.
Presbyterian,
Yep.
that's right, Presbyterian.
Yep.
When did you really know that this was, that God was really beginning to work on your life, did you know that God wanted you to help young ministries? Like where did you get the shift?
It came really slowly, Polly.
Did it?
It wasn't a
Okay.
life-shattering moment. It wasn't that God clapped his hands up there and said, "Hey, Al, wake up!
I got a big job for you
I got
to
a big
do."
job." No,
Yeah.
it wasn't anything. It was a slow growing into it. I wasn't really fighting against it, but I just wasn't clear. Okay, my mother says I went to high school for 3 reasons: football, wrestling, and track.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
So I was active in our small youth group. But I was mainly there because Margie was there. But
It's always about the girl.
yeah. It's especially that girl. So it just
that's sweet.
so when I went to a Christian college, and just through, I don't want to say happenstance because that makes it sound like God wasn't involved.
Mm-hmm.
God was involved, but not through my own thinking,
Understanding.
But I graduated from high school with 4 years of Latin and a year of French. I got to college, and this advisor was there, and he said, "I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I want to major in. Maybe PE, but that's it."
Some sports.
But so I was undeclared, so I was assigned to this little round old man, and he says, "Well, I see you had 4 years of Latin in high school. You're going to need a language in college. You might as well sign up for Greek." Now, what did I know? I didn't know any better, and I was a compliant kid, so I said, "Okay, sign me up for Greek." And I got into it and found out it was something I loved, something I could do well, and something way that I could communicate with others about. And all. And so I slid into that, and then down the line, then I graduated from college with the plan of going on in classical philology, going on in university. I was accepted at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and was planning on going on there, but little thing stood in my way. It was called the Vietnam War. And that meant if you went on for a master's degree immediately out of college, you were more likely to be learning Vietnamese than you were Greek.
How about that?
Okay. And so what did so many of us do in those days? We avoided the draft by going to seminary. We figured it was better to have professors throwing chalk at us than having Viet Cong shooting at us. And so here I could keep on studying Greek and at the same time avoid the draft. So
Gotcha.
I was in seminary, and then God started to grab a hold of my heart more and say, maybe it's not classical philology. Maybe your love for languages is something God could use. And so it was a gradual, slow dawning that there was another path, that God had given me gifts, language gifts, but that those language gifts weren't meant to be put on the shelf. They weren't just a gift that I should put up there as a trophy and look at. They weren't just gifts that I could keep to myself, but they were gifts that God gave me for the benefit of His people. And so it was a growing thing, Polly, a gradual sharpening of, and an understanding that, and some godly men I had as faculty, my professors, both in college and in seminary, just pointing me in a direction that God could use.
Al, what was the best advice a mentor-type person ever gave you?
Oh, wow.
I know, I didn't prep him on this.
His name was J. Furman Miller. He was a professor of Bible at Bryan College in Dayton, Tennessee. And for some reason, he took a liking to me, and we would spend many afternoons on his pontoon boat out in the Tennessee River, pull off into some little cove, little lagoon, and both of us would have books, and we would be be reading books floating. He'd put down anchor and we'd be floating back there. And every once in a while we'd communicate. But he took an interest in me. And he also had a severe throat problem. And I would often wander into his office before classes began in the morning. And we would pray together there. And so this is not something he so much piece of advice he gave me, but something he modeled.
Modeled. Yeah,
Okay?
that's really powerful.
And his prayer would be, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to get through today. I'm not asking you to take my pain away. I'm asking you to give me the strength to get done everything that you want me to do today. He never prayed for his own comfort.
Right.
He always prayed for God's will to be done.
To be established. Yeah.
And that model was
Made an impact.
That model was huge for me, right alongside of the model of my father. My father was an Irish immigrant, came to this country in 1922, just in time for the Great Depression. Okay, hard-working man. Went to the fifth grade in school. Always worked a second job as long as I can remember. I grew up over in Levittown, 34 Hollyhock Lane, right off of the Levittown Parkway over here, those of you who know that part of our area. Dad always had a second job. The second job was usually as a janitor. Okay, and for a long time, he was the janitor. His main job was as a drill press operator down in Philadelphia. But on weekends, on Saturdays, he would clean the church. And for a long time, it was at Feasterville Baptist Church. And one afternoon, we were getting done early. I had to go with Dad every Saturday. I had to go with Dad from the time I was about 9 years old till I graduated from high school. And one day we were getting done early, and I thought, wow, I'm going to be out of here early enough today. I'm going to call Margie as soon as I get home. We didn't have cell phones in those days. And so that's my plan. And then Dad gets out about a 20-foot ladder. That church at Feasterville Baptist Church, tall white pillars out front of the church, one of these old style churches, tall white pillars. Next thing I know, Dad has me up on the top of that ladder, washing down the top of these tall white posts. And at some point in frustration, I looked down at Dad. He was making sure the ladder held me. And I said, Dad, no one's ever going to know I'm even up here doing this. And he said, God knows, I know, and now you'll know. Dad was a nonverbal person. He never said too much. But when he spoke, it was the old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, you listen, okay?
Yeah.
And Dad communicated that the smallest thing you do for Christ is significant.
Yeah.
The smallest piece of work you do anywhere for God counts. And pay attention to the details. Yeah. Because they're going to matter down the road.
Yeah.
That combination of
we're very formative.
Of Dr. Miller and Dad. That's the ethos.
Yeah.
That's the background that shapes a whole lot of who I am.
Yeah. Well, it's really an honor to have someone who served all these years in forming ministry and ministers and creating, the beauty of the church, right? The unlimited walls of the church. And I just, I'm very grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for your leadership. Thank you for leading missions and just being a joy everywhere. And his wife is active in ministry. Hey, Margie. And just grateful for your service that you keep serving. You keep doing what God's called you to do. He just finished a project, by the way, for Wycliffe and doing cliff notes for their Bible. So he's still going strong for the Lord. He just gets to pick and choose now.
I get to pick and choose.
He gets to pick and choose, so he's very happy. And we're so glad you're part of our church. Take away some lessons today. A lot of times we move so fast and we don't pay attention to these small but significant words and conversations that actually begin to form our lives. So I hope you walked away with some nuggets today about how to go and live your mission. God bless. See you next time.
God bless.